Hello everyone and welcome to part 1 of the Skin Deep series. For this episode I have lined up 10 dinosaur skins that I think are the very best in Jurassic World Evolution, with some unexpected inclusions and some controversial exclusions, I think. Of course we harp on about the plentiful, dull, boring and unimaginative skins, but there are some real gems in this game and I struggled a lot with this top 10 as I tried to convey with that little intro. I'd love to know what your favorite dinosaur skins are in the game, so comment those down below. You can do a full top 10, a top 5, top 3, just your number 1, or maybe just your favorite skin type overall. How I determined my top 10 was not just by looking at the wow factor of a certain skin, but trying to see it separate from the dinosaur and imagine what the skin would look like on other species. Skins that I think would look really great on multiple species, therefore have a leg up in my opinion. I'll get into some specific examples during the top 10. Like, if I see a skin on a dinosaur that I think would also look great on a T-Rex or a Brachii, it gets bonus points, basically. How universally applicable a skin is was a really big factor for me. Other factors are pattern, contrast, details, and colors, of course. Finally, I forced myself to only pick one skin per species, because otherwise this list would favor a couple of species, and that would have been boring, frankly. But the alternative skins do get a well-deserved shout out when we get to them. Okay, so now that I've explained the reasoning behind my choices, I think we are ready to dive into this shallow ranking of dinosaur beauty. At the end of the video, I'm also going to tell you what else I have planned for the Skin Deep series, so stick around and yell at me in the comments for my odd picks and share your personal favorites. It's gonna get weird, folks. People should not be using the word skin as often as I have and as often as I will. But let's go full on Buffalo Bill and dive into this top 10. And it puts the lotion in the basket. Number 10, my most controversial pick, I'm sure, the Rainforest Gallimimus. I don't even know if I necessarily think it's a pretty skin, but I'm drawn to it because it's so unique and there's so much detail in it. There really isn't a comparable skin in the game in terms of this color scheme and patterning. The stripes in the blue on the upper back and the banding on the tail really sets it apart. What I like most about it is that it looks real to me. It's not perfect, it's not pretty, but it's kind of grungy and makes it look like a true dinosaur and not like a beautiful asset, as Claire from Jurassic World might have called it. It also looks a little bit creepy, even though when you look at it closely, it's actually a very nice shade of blue. I think the skin would also look particularly cool on smaller carnivores, and maybe even the larger carnivores as well. It's a weird pick, I get it, it's weird, and I did second guess myself a lot, because there is an Allura Titan skin that didn't make the cut because of this skin, but I'm sticking with the Gallimimus, the underdog. Number 9 comes lumbering out of the creation lab. It is the Wetland Sauropod. I love the subtle, splotchy pattern that gives some great visual interest to what overall just registers as a green skin. You'll see throughout this top 10 that I don't necessarily always prefer the brightest colors, although I do think it is important that bright colors keep getting added to the game to mix up the look of a herd. What is more important to me is the attention to detail, and this skin really looks like it got some TLC from Frontier. I like how the skin fades from foresty shades of green along the spine to more mossy greens along the midline, and then a really nice transition to the cream underbelly and the neck. Those little hints of brighter green mixed in makes the pattern really stand out that much better, but without it being in your face. And look at all these little circular designs within the scales along the top of the back. That is the kind of detail we need across the board. This skin would look really great on Nigersaurus' larger cousins. The big sauropods tend to have pretty boring and flat skins. I mean, I appreciate the step Brachii and the Camarasaurus has some pretty nice patterns, but this skin would be really cool to see on the big girls. I also think it would be an awesome skin for the larger carnivores. It's fantastic camouflage while still being beautiful and interesting. Here comes number 8, the jungle gigant Spinosaurus. Also, 3 herbivores into this list. This is the opportune time to mention that my top 10 does indeed consist mostly of herbivores, and I'm guessing that will come as a surprise to you. It seems to me that, in general, the carnivore skins get some more love from the developers and from the public as well. But some of these herbivore skins are really underappreciated, and they're kind of sleeper hits, like this Gigant skin. Of course, I can't talk about the Gigant Spinosaurus without also giving a shout out to the Vivid skin. I adore the Vivid skin, and really the game needs these skins for variation. But the Jungle skin edged out the Vivid one by the tiniest of margins. I love the warm brown tones mixed in with the cool grey and the black ink spots. It's such a rustic and attractive color combination. It works for your living room, it certainly works for mine, and what do you know, it works for dinosaurs too. This would be a fantastic skin for the big and medium carnivores, not just because of the color combo, but also because it is a great example of a noticeable pattern that isn't too shouty, too loud. In essence, it's very similar to the alternative pattern for the Acrocanthosaurus, which did not make my list, by the way, and I'll tell you why. The Wetland, Jungle, and Vivid Acro skins are very cool, but it's too much of a good thing. It's bright colors, plus a busy pattern, plus a high contrast on a big dinosaur, and it's just too much in my opinion. This Jungle Gigant skin takes away the brightness, and that makes it a lot more palatable overall. So this would be a wonderful alternative for the Acros, but I especially want this on the Cerato, the Metri, and the Majunga. I'm on a first name basis with the dinosaurs, as you can tell. But here does come the Acrocanthosaurus at number 7, but it is the basic skin. I know people are really hyped about the alternative skins for the Acro, but like I just said, I think those are too much. What I really like about this skin is the warm, golden brown, kind of like a caramel color. I want to take a bite out of this big boy, he looks delicious. I'm really drawn to that stripe along the side like a moth to a flame. I think it's gorgeous. It's such an understated skin, but it works for me. I can imagine loving this skin on all the large carnivores, as well as the Hadrosaurs. For the Acro, I also really like the step skin, which is generally my go-to, but the basic Acrocanthosaurus has been a recent favorite of mine, which it means I might regret putting him on this list in a couple of weeks, but right now I'm just infatuated with this skin. I debated replacing this pick with the basic Metracanthosaurus because I really love that skin as well, but I figured I had to choose between these two because they are quite similar when you boil them down to the basics. It's just golden brown skins. I nixed the Metri skin because even though it has a lot of detail, it doesn't have a lot of depth. The Acro skin has a lot of nice color transitions that give it depth, whereas the Metri skin is just, it's more like layers of colors stacked onto each other. Am I making sense? I hope so. Anyway, the Metri definitely would still make the top 20, but can't compete with the basic Acro in the top 10. With a hellish shriek, the Steppe Spinoraptor misses out on the top 5 as it comes in 6th place. The Spinoraptor basically exclusively has great skins, but the Woodland and the Steppe in particular are my favorites. It's almost a toss-up between the two of them, but the Steppe has a little more contrast between the muzzle and the body than the Woodland has, which is how it won over the green variant. You're probably seeing a pattern in my list at this point, a lot of greens and browns. I'm sorry. I was actually surprised myself when I finished my lineup and I noticed that when you put them all together, that it's actually mostly quite boring. So this has been a journey of self-discovery for me, but yeah, apparently I really like the more earthy skin tones. But of course, we have some exceptions coming up, but still. With regards to the Spinoraptor, the reddish-brown color of the Steppe skin in combination with that cream counter shading, as the godfather of Jurassic World Evolution keeps telling us, is near perfection in my opinion. Combined with that black and grey face, the patterning on the sail and the subtle banding at the end of the tail just elevates this skin to a new level. It looks like a real dinosaur skin without being boring, you know? Just vibrant enough, but not so much that it becomes toy-like. Again, any of the other carnivores would look fantastic with this skin. Actually, they should be so lucky as to have gorgeous skin like this. Here we go into the top 5 with the Rainforest Stygmoloch. No break from pattern yet from me. We are again looking at shades of brown. This Stygmoloch skin has a really understated way of incorporating a classic color theory duo, namely orange and teal. Of course, as you can see in this skin, those colors have been toned down to a caramel brown and a low saturated petrol color. But the dichotomy of warm and cool is what makes this skin so interesting and attractive. If there's a Stygmoloch in my park, it's always a Rainforest Stygmoloch, because I love this skin so much. I didn't expect it to be quite this high up on the list, but when I started thinking about how universally applicable it could potentially be, I realized that this skin could pretty much work for any dinosaur, besides maybe the Ankylosauridae. And not just because of the color combination, but also because of how they come together in this jagged pattern. I wouldn't like this nearly as much in a pattern similar to the Wetland Homalocephali that you saw in the intro. It's the way the petrol falls over the brown that really makes them look natural together, and this pattern, I feel, can be scaled up to some of the larger dinosaurs, and I'd love to see it on an Allosaurus. I mean, the Allo has great skins already, but this would also be really, really cool. That's about as eloquently as I can put it, just really cool. Number 4 is the vivid Archaeon, the first of 3 vivids to make it onto this list, even though generally speaking, I find the vivids pretty disappointing as they are rarely actually vivid. And I wouldn't describe this Archae as vivid either, but I would describe it as beautiful. Also, shout out to Jim Carrey for helping me learn to spell that word. It's another surprising pick. I don't see the Archae getting much love from anyone for anything. It's mostly considered the most underwhelming of the deluxe edition dinosaurs, and I don't use it all that much myself either, but I really should because this skin is great. Let's first look at the wetland skin though, because that was another contender. It's another skin that plays on the color wheel by combining green with orange, which is probably why I'm so drawn to it. But the vivid is a little bit more interesting, so let's look at that because that one is actually number 4. The deep purple with the pastel orange is lovely. The hints of brighter pink by the face and the very tip of the tail give it a little bit more oomph, and by making the body more of a dull shade, I think they've kept it realistic looking. I dream of seeing this skin on the Hadrosaurus, like the Ceratosaurus, which is in dire need of some better skins. It would also be a really cool skin for the smaller and maybe even some of the medium carnivores. As it is though, it's just a great excuse to add the Archaeon to your parks once in a while. We're starting with the top 3 with the brightest dinosaur in my top 10, the vivid Muttaburrasaurus. If you know me from Reddit, you may have seen me reference this skin as the second best skin in the game, but I've had a change of heart while working on this video, so although beautiful, she is no longer the runner-up. This is the skin where teal and orange aren't playing around anymore. They went balls to the walls with this Muttaburra skin, and they knocked it out of the park. It's been a while, but I think I might have actually gasped when this vivid Mutta first walked out of the creation lab, like I was the host of a makeover show and we were doing the big reveal. This skin is just so unexpected for Jurassic World Evolution. It actually doesn't fit the franchise at all, but I'm so glad that we got this little gem. The teal and orange are blended beautifully through individual scales mixing together, and the contrast with the cream is just enough to make the pattern pop without it being too harsh. Now, I also briefly want to look at the woodland Muttaburrasaurus, which I oftentimes neglect in favor of the vivid, even though it's one of my favorite skins. And of course, it's another green skin. I like all of the different tones in this, but really it's mostly the pattern on the tail that really hits the spot for me. I'd love to see this woodland skin on all of the carnivores, big and small and everything in between. And maybe even on the sauropods, because that's just how much I love it. But the vivid is just so bright and cheery and mesmerizing that it edged out the woodland. The new number 2 is the vivid Ceratosaurus. This deep eggplant kind of purple mixed with softer pink hues and a pop of neon green is an excellent way to move away from every dinosaur being a big gray or brown blob without making them so bright that they don't fit the franchise. I'm really enamored with this color and the pattern. I also like the jungle, another green and brown skin, wow, shocking, but I prefer the vivid. It looks toxic, but in a good way, which is what makes me think it would be a good alternative skin for the Troodon first and foremost. But really, I would pay money for a Velociraptor or Deinonychus with the skin, and I even think it would be suitable for the bigger carnivores as well, because the purple is still quite subdued. Maybe not the very biggest carnivores, but like the Carno, the Metri, the Majunga, the Baryonyx, you know, those guys. I'd probably also like it on the Ornithomimids, the Hadrosaurs, and some of the Stegosaurids, like the Chunkingosaurus, and the Huayangosaurus. I mean, I really love this skin, is what I'm saying. And I feel like there really is no need to say more. I mean, just look at it. I don't have to point out how good it is, right? Or am I going crazy? Well, you might have written me off as crazy ages ago when I brought the Rainforest Gallimimus into this top 10. But let's find out just how crazy I really am with my number one pick, the best skin in the game, in my opinion. The basic Edmontosaurus. Look at my girl, she is fun. That's weird. I just made it way more weird than this needs to be. Anyway, I think the Edmontosaurus skin is the most carefully and lovingly designed skin of all, and that might be because it's a rare example of Frontier using a skin that was pre-designed for the movie franchise. This skin design had already appeared on the Jurassic World website, and if I remember correctly, it was also on a Parasaurolophus. So clearly during the production of the movie, someone very talented was paid to invest time and effort in making this skin look good, and I think it shows. Now, not to diss Frontier, they've done some amazing work, as I hope I have highlighted with this top 10. But I genuinely think time was an issue. In fact, we all know time was an issue for the development of the game overall, and I think the lack of time is also why we see quite a few skins in the game that are, well, let's be honest, they're boring. I'm fairly confident that's because there wasn't enough time for the designers to come up with something great for each and every species. With the Edmontosaurus, the work had already been done, and it looks like this person did have oodles of time, or was just insanely, infuriatingly talented, you know, that's also a thing. The skin is so detailed, like at its core, it's just a brown body with a mint green face, but up close it's so much more than that. There are so many different shades of brown in the body, in the stark pattern on the tail, and the subtle patterning on the rump. And of course that explosion of color on the face with the mint green and blue and the yellow accent, and then that streak of dark brown coming down from the eye, which breaks up the colors of the face and gives the overall design just a more purposeful look. You can tell that someone thought about this. It's not just throwing a bunch of colors on a dinosaur and see what sticks. It's meticulous, and that work has paid off. I think it really shows. I'd be curious to see this skin as a universal option for all dinosaurs in the game. I think I might actually like it on every single species. On the Velociraptors, on the Dracorex, on the Iguanodon, on the Parasaurolophus, obviously, on the Baryonyx, and on the Dilophosaurus, and any ceratopsid in the game. For these, the colors will be on the frill to really make it stand out. The Ceratopsidae need some better skins in this game. That's something I'm going to discuss more in the next Skin Deep video. Today we've looked at the best skins in the game. Next week we are going to look at the best skins not in the game. And of course, in another episode I will address my picks for the top 10 worst skins in the game. Subscribe and ring the bell if you don't want to miss out on these vids and more, and please comment and like the video. I mean, you made it this far. I mean, you liked it, right? If you've made it this far. And you'd really help out the channel if you just hit any of those buttons. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, enjoy the game.